Hello everyone, welcome back. In the previous episode we integrated podcatcher with podcastindex.org. So if you go in here, you type in something, it queries the API for results and renders them to the page. I noticed, however, that if you just type in complete gibberish for which there's no results, we lost our nice result not found page. And that's because if you actually look, the results that's returning, we're just passing through the JSON, the raw data to the page to render. It's actually returning status true with empty feeds and empty counts. So I guess what we want to do is actually say if the results.feeds is there. So maybe we want if results and results.feed. Okay, so that seems to be working. That's one thing we can do to improve things. And also, it's not very resilient if we hit some kind of API limit, or if there's kind of like network connection failures. So I want to kind of defend against that. So one thing we can do is we can say this. We can just cheat and test what happens if our podcast API key is just incorrect. What will happen? So if we try and search for stuff you should know now, it's going to blow up because there's no JSON, presumably because they didn't bother to send us anything because we're unauthorized. So if we just look in, views, I add a breakpoint just after here, make the request again. If we look at the, if I can type the status code, we get 401, which is pretty sure it's unauthorized status code. 401. Yep, lacks valid credentials. So maybe you want to just defend against this. So we could either check if it's like 200 the integer, but I quite like to use these, the actual like verbs. So that if it is something that's uncommon, I find it easier to read, accepted than 202, because then you don't have to memorize all the codes. So let's just try this. Let's import HTTP status. So if the resp.status is equal to .ok, then we're going to return these results. Else, maybe we just want to return an empty dictionary. Let's see what happens in this scenario. If we go back here, refresh the page, no results found for stuff you should know. Seems to be working. What other kind of things can we emulate? Potentially, like if the API is down and we exceed like the max retries. Let's have a look how we can do this. Is there any exceptions in here? How can we catch all kinds of like URL-lib exceptions? Is there like a catch-all? Response error, read timeout, max retry error. So it's based on like request error. So let's try this one. Let's try and catch just like all request errors and see if that fails as well. So say try accept URL lib read exceptions dot response error. And if that does happen, then yeah, I just want to return this. Else we just want to continue. Maybe there's a nicer way to actually organize this code, but for the time being, let's just keep it as is. I'm wondering exactly how we can test this. So maybe if we just like disable Wi-Fi temporarily, then we can test things. So let's go. Let's disconnect. So the rest of our app should actually be working fine because we're serving this locally, but when we call the API, we're getting a read timeout inside url.request, which is interesting because I would have thought we would have caught that with the exception handling here. Maybe it is not a subclass of all of those. Let's look in user guide and turn the Wi-Fi back on and see if there's actually any recommendations against like exception handling. New connection error. See exceptions for the full list of exceptions. Is that like a catch all? Connection timeout. Maybe let's just catch this max retry error instead. So max retry, and then again kill the Wi-Fi, go back here, reload. Okay, so that seems to be working. I might encounter something further along the lines where I run out of requests or something, or hit the API limit, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah. In the next episode, I think we're going to be looking at the subscribe button. So if I turn the Wi-Fi back on and I do search for something, I want to add a button here that just ingests this podcast into our app based on whatever feed URL is in here. So when we click subscribe, I want it to show here for the particular user that's logged in. Alright, see you in the next episode.